Hi, today I'm doing a review on the Jessica Darling series by Megan McCafferty. Now, I first discovered these books after I read Bumped, which is also by Megan McCafferty, and yeah, so I read the first one and I took a little break, and then I read the second one, I took a little break, and then I read the third, fourth and fifth. So there's 5 books in the series, and it's just like normal, contemporary, kind of a YA, I suppose it's a bit of a YA series, so there's nothing supernatural going on. It's about Jessica Darling, and she's 16, I think, at the beginning, 16 years old, and it's all told in diary format. So Jessica Darling writing in her diary about what she gets up to in high school, and then the 5 books take place over about 10 years. So yeah, she goes through high school to college, after college. This series is a bit of a conundrum because I felt so in love and passionate about the first 2 books because they were brilliant. But the third, fourth and fifth were like so disappointing then after the amazing first 2. Out of all the teen novels out there, this one I felt was just the most relatable I ever read. I'm not saying like the author read my soul and like wrote about me. No, I'm not saying that. Like, there were a lot of things Jessica did that I never did. Like, she's on like a running team in school. We don't really have that here. And yeah, there's a lot of things she didn't do, but a lot of her feelings and how she reacted and parts of her life, I felt like I related to, and that's how I felt. And the author just did it really well. And like, even though it's about teenagers at the beginning of the series, I do think any age could read it, and it's definitely for at least 16 and up, because there's lots of subject matter that's mentioned that young teenagers shouldn't read about. And I think from the 3rd book on, it could be even considered more of an adult series, because it does get a bit more explicit as the books go on. But I just thought the author did a brilliant job, particularly with the first 2 books. Like, she's just an amazing writer, and this Jessica Darling, she's just the most cynical yet witty, self-analytical and analytical of everything around her, and she just comes out with the most wittiest, like, sarcastic banter with people, or lines, and lots of popular culture references, and she loves 80s teen movies, and I felt a little bit like the first 2 books were kind of reminiscent of 80s movies, and I just really enjoyed the first 2, and I was just enjoying it the whole way, and I couldn't wait to read the next one. Then on the 3rd one, she's in college, and the time jumps are crazy in this series, because like the 3rd book takes place over 3 or 4 years, and the 4th book takes place over a week, and the 5th book takes place over like a day. So it's strange, the whole timeline in the series. But so yeah, so the 3rd book, I don't know what happened. The author, it was a lot more like vulgar, and Jessica was a lot more crude, and all the negative things she found out about girls in her school she was doing kind of in the 3rd book, and she was less likeable. And the 4th and 5th book, she kind of got back to the way she was. There's a lovely romance in the series that's like, one of those epic ones, and that just made me love the second one. Yeah, so it's a pity that I wasn't left satisfied by the ending of the series, because I wasn't. I do think the author maybe should have given us the satisfying ending at the end of the 4th, and then left the 5th book to what happened next, because I do want to know what happened next, and we don't get much of that. Like, even an epilogue, or like, if she didn't want to do another whole 6th book, an epilogue would have been nice. But the author as well, she writes in like such a different way, because it's in diary format, except for the last book. The last book isn't. But like, she experiments with it, because Jessica makes lots of lists and MCQs, and there's like, in the 5th book it's all over the place. There's like half the book's in dialogue, and there's like pages and pages of haikus, and Yeah, so the author really experiments with her writing, and it's not just straightforward first person narration or third person narration. There's lots of like cute special things in there. I appreciate it, particularly in the first and second book. You know, she was just kind of like a teenage girl with severely low self-esteem and problem relationships, and even though it was kind of like all funny and witty and all the typical teenage years kind of theme throughout, there was also kind of like a darker tone underneath it all with serious issues going on, and I really kind of appreciated the author doing that. Like, it wasn't just a happy-go-lucky teenager. There was all these kind of serious issues underneath that she didn't make very explicit, but that were there and you could sense. They were a little bit less there in the second book, and then she kind of forgot about it for the rest of the series. But yes, I do recommend this series, well, especially the first two books. I felt like they were really long reads. Like, it's hard to tell how long a book is when you're reading it on an e-reader, but I felt like it was really long. Like, so much happens, and which is good. And like, I enjoyed the whole series, but the first and two books were just extra special. So that's my spoiler-free review. Okay, so now I'm going to do a spoiler review on the series, and if you don't know want to know the spoilers, I suggest you switch off now. Okay, so the Jessica and Marcus relationship is one of the best, like, couples in all the series. Like, they're just so romantic and funny and epic and all in one. But the author, yeah, she didn't treat them well towards the end. Like, in the first book they had that sweet thing, and then they didn't really get together, and you're like, fine, we'll wait for the second book. And the author did, I think, a good job, because, you know, the more they got built up, the more satisfied you were with the end. And the end of the second book is the only part of the whole series I reread. You know, he sang a song to her in his t-shirt, You Yes You, and it was just all, it was like a teen 80s movie, but it was so good, and I loved them. That was the heightness of their coupledom. But the third book then, the whole time I was reading it, you know, while they were together at the beginning, I was like, what is Jessica's problem? She was very whiny and needed to find issues and everything, and she was never truly happy while he was there. And then she cheated, which I was shocked about, and they broke up. But that whole separation, where they didn't see each other for 2 years, and all they got were postcards, I hated it. I hated them being separated and not together. And Jessica then turned into like this, like, slutty, sex-obsessed, shallow character, and I just wasn't crazy about her. I was frustrated with Marcus as well, because he didn't give the relationship much of a go, and he didn't really properly break up with her. And even at the end of the third book, she was like, yeah, we could be temporary, next week we might see each other for years again. Because I know they need to like want to be together all the time. And then the fourth book took place over a week. I think the fourth book was the dullest book for me. It just dragged out so much. Like, the author needed to drag it out because it was just a week, when usually she spends years. So yeah, the whole, like, he proposed, what was she going to say? And I thought, like, the whole book would be dedicated to her finding reasons why they can't get married, and then in the end she'd say, yes, despite all that, I still love you and I want to be with you. That would have been a nice, satisfying ending, but no, the author decided to split them up again, and this time for 3 years. What was the point in having Jessica turn down Marcus's proposal at the end of the fourth book, when they were just going to get together at the end of the fifth book anyway? Because if it was to make sure that they got the year's separation, they already had a year's separation. What was the need for having more? Yeah, and so instead of having this fifth book where they end up getting back together again, we could have had the end of the fourth book, she's saying yes, and the fifth book could have been a happy, funny book full of kind of like hijinks and wedding planning and them being happy. Because we only get like about 2 seconds of them back together, and then the book finishes very abruptly in the fifth. And I just would have liked to know what happened next with them. I think as fans we kind of deserve that. Like, and I know all those things with Jessica in the third and the fourth and everything. Like, was the author showing Jessica's imperfections? She had them since the very beginning, and that's human. That's what everyone has. That's fine. I appreciate that. But as well, there comes a point where you want to have imperfect, realistic outcomes. That's not going to be satisfying to a reader, and I don't care if it's unrealistic. I want a happy ending. I want to be satisfied as a reader, and why can't the authors do that? I don't know. And I mean, it's not like us fans weren't put through enough. They were split up for years and years. They had their troubles. They had lots of troubles. So why couldn't they be happy for one whole book? I don't know. So as a series, then I was quite disappointed with the ending. But I just like to think back on the first two, which were so brilliant. And of course, there were good parts in the third and fourth and fifth as well. Just not enough to make me delighted with them. Yeah, so that's my spoiler review. I'd love to know what you think of the series. Like, the majority of the reviews I've read were like books mostly 3 and 5 disappointing, and the rest good. Yeah, but I'd love to know what you think of it, because it's such an amazing beginning to a series with kind of an unsatisfying ending. But yeah, so let me know what you think, and that's my review. So thank you very much for watching, and tune in next time.